So tonight we're talking the Iowa caucus and the field of presidential hopefuls that will be a main focus of this year's event. But first, what is a caucus? A caucus is simply a special kind of meeting or gathering. In Iowa, it might be in a church, a school, or even someone's home. A caucus is when a bunch of legislative body members get together to select a candidate. The word caucus actually has a Native American Algonquin origin meaning advisor, which is kind of what the attendees do. They advise. Mills County Auditor Carol Robertson says Iowans often feel like their advisement is heard by the entire nation.
The people are interested in, listening to the different candidates, and I think they come out of there, feeling a little bit better and think that they're maybe actually making a statement to the other states. And even though our vote isn't an actual like a primary or anything, it's still very unique.
And that's pretty accurate because in the caucus's 40-year history, no candidate finishing below third has ever gone on to win the nomination. So how does a state with a population of just over 3 million and known primarily for its corn and soybean output become the national focus of politics every 4 years? Iowa actually has a caucus every other year for congressional cycles, but it's that fourth year when the eyes of the entire nation turn towards the Hawkeye State. Since 1972, Iowa has been the first state that throws its support behind a particular candidate during the primary season. And by default, it also becomes the first real test for each of the candidates. If a candidate receives a considerable amount of support in the Iowa caucus, it stands to reason that they will also have a good chance with the rest of the nation as well. On the other hand, if a particular candidate does not receive a good amount of support, campaign donations might start to dwindle, signaling the end of a campaign. So how does the caucus work? Iowa is divided into 99 counties, and those counties are divided up into precincts. Each precinct has a set number of delegates it must assign, and these delegates will go on to county conventions. And the county conventions then decide on delegates for both Iowa's Congressional District Convention and the state convention. Finally, it is at these conventions where delegates are selected for the presidential nominating conventions.
So to be clear, caucus attendees don't directly choose the candidate. Instead, they choose delegates they feel will best represent their choice. For the two parties, coming to that result is slightly different. First, let's look at the Republican process.
What they will do is talk about have each candidate's person talk, and then they will take a vote.
The Democrats' process is a little more complicated. First, they might give a few words supporting their candidates, but caucus goers start by getting into small groups based on their candidates, known as preference groups. There might even be a group of undecideds. Each group is then counted and a percentage of support is calculated. Now here's where it gets a little different. Caucus leaders decide which groups are viable. Depending on how many delegates need to be appointed, the viability threshold could be anywhere from 15 to 25% of attendees. Any candidate without enough support is deemed unviable, and those persons must realign to a viable candidate or declare that they are undecided. Then members from each of the viable groups try to persuade the undecideds to join their ranks. Once most of the undecideds have chosen a group and all the preference groups are deemed viable, the caucus is over. And just like the Republicans, Democratic delegates are assigned based on percentage of support. And that's it, the Iowa caucus, a picture of Republican democracy in action. For the Omaha News, I'm Matt Barrows.